Meet Daniel, a 27-year-old earning around $50,000 a year. He isn't rich, he doesn't have any special advantage, and he isn't chasing risky shortcuts. He simply decided to invest $500 every month, consistently, no matter what. After 5 years, Daniel has contributed about $30,000 of his own money into the market. When he checks his account, the total value is a little over $36,000, meaning the market has only added around $6,000. At first glance, this feels underwhelming. 5 years of discipline, patience, and sacrifice, and the market has barely contributed anything meaningful. This is the phase of investing that almost nobody talks about. The stage where compounding technically exists, but emotionally, it feels like nothing is happening. It's slow, it's quiet, and for many people, it's frustrating enough to make them quit. Most finance content online shows a very different picture. You've probably seen the famous hockey stick chart, a line that starts flat and then suddenly curves upward into massive growth. The message is always the same: start early, stay consistent, and eventually, your money will explode. While this is technically true, what's missing is context. Nobody tells you where you are on that curve. Nobody explains that for the first several years, that line is so flat it almost looks like it's not moving at all. When Daniel looks at his progress after 5 years, he's still stuck in that flat section. And here's the reality: during this phase, he's doing almost all the work. His contributions make up more than 80% of his portfolio, while the market's gains feel like a small bonus rather than the main driver. Let's break this down more clearly. In Daniel's first year, he invests $6,000 with an average return of around 8%. The market adds roughly $200 to $300 over that year. That's about $20 a month. It's not life-changing. It doesn't feel exciting. In fact, it barely feels noticeable. By year 3, Daniel has invested around $18,000, and his total gains might be somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000. Again, this doesn't feel impressive. It's money he could have earned from a short side hustle or a few extra shifts at work. This is the exact point where many people lose motivation. They start questioning whether investing is even worth it. They compare the slow growth of their portfolio to faster ways of making money and begin to feel like they're wasting time. But what most people don't realize is that something extremely important is happening beneath the surface. Even though the visible results are small, Daniel is building what can be called his financial base. This base is the foundation that compounding depends on. The math of compounding is simple, but its impact depends entirely on the size of the number it's applied to. An 8% return on $5,000 is only $400, but an 8% return on $100,000 is $8,000. The rate hasn't changed, but the outcome has. In the early years, the rate works against you emotionally because the base is small, but as the base grows, the exact same percentage begins to produce results that finally feel significant. This brings us to one of the most important but rarely discussed concepts in investing: the crossover point. The crossover point is the moment when your investments start generating more money in a year than you are contributing yourself. In other words, it's the moment when your money begins to outwork you. For Daniel, investing $500 a month means he contributes $6,000 per year. So the question becomes, when will his portfolio be large enough that an average 8% return generates more than $6,000 annually? The answer is when his portfolio reaches somewhere around $75,000 to $90,000. At that level, the market can start adding $6,000 or more per year on its own. For Daniel, this happens around year 10 or 11. By this point, his portfolio has grown to roughly $90,000. When he looks at his account now, something feels different. The market isn't just adding a few $100s anymore, it's adding thousands. For the first time, the gains are starting to rival and then exceed his own contributions. This is the moment where investing finally starts to feel rewarding. It's no longer just about discipline, it's about momentum. The system he built over the past decade is now beginning to work for him in a meaningful way. From here, the growth curve starts to bend upward more noticeably. By year 15, Daniel's portfolio might reach around $160,000 to $180,000. At this stage, the market could be contributing $12,000 to $14,000 per year, double what he is investing. This is a completely different experience compared to the early years. Now, even if Daniel doesn't increase his contributions, his wealth continues to grow at a faster pace simply because of the size of his base. By year 20, his portfolio could reach approximately $280,000 to $300,000. Out of this amount, a significant portion, well over half, comes from market gains rather than his own contributions. By the time Daniel reaches year 30, the numbers become even more dramatic. His total contributions over 30 years would be around $180,000. However, his portfolio could grow to $700,000 or more, depending on market performance. This means that roughly 70% to 75% of his total wealth comes from compounding, not from the money he personally invested. This is the phase that most influencers love to show, the impressive exponential growth where money seems to multiply on its own. But what they often leave out is the decade of slow, frustrating progress that made this possible. While this journey sounds powerful, it's also fragile, especially in the early years. One of the biggest risks to compounding is interruption. If Daniel withdraws money from his investments too early, it doesn't just reduce his balance, it disrupts the entire compounding process. For example, if he withdraws $8,000 in year 4 for an emergency, that money is no longer there to grow over the next 20 or 30 years. The impact isn't just $8,000. It could be tens of thousands of dollars in lost future value. It may also delay his crossover points by a year or more, which further slows down his long-term growth. This is why having an emergency fund is critical. Before focusing heavily on investing, Daniel should have at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in a separate, easily accessible account. This acts as a financial buffer, allowing him to handle unexpected expenses without touching his investments. Think of it as protecting the foundation of a building. Without it, everything else becomes unstable. Many people fail to build wealth not because they don't invest, but because they are forced to repeatedly withdraw from their investments, resetting their progress over and over again. Another key factor that can dramatically change the outcome is income. In the early years, before reaching the crossover point, increasing income often has a bigger impact than increasing investment returns. If Daniel finds a way to increase his monthly investment from $500 to $700, the long-term difference can be massive. Over decades, that extra $200 per month doesn't just add up, it compounds. It can increase his final portfolio value by hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is why focusing on career growth, skill development, and additional income streams can be just as important as investing itself, especially in the beginning. It's also important to measure progress in the right way. Many people become discouraged because they focus too much on their portfolio value instead of their behavior. In the early years, the most important metrics are your savings rate and your consistency. Are you investing regularly? Are you increasing your contributions over time? Are you avoiding unnecessary withdrawals? These are the factors that determine whether you will eventually reach the crossover point. The actual portfolio value, especially in the beginning, can be misleading because it doesn't fully reflect the future potential of your system. Psychology plays a huge role in this process. Humans are naturally wired to seek immediate rewards, which makes long-term investing feel uncomfortable. When Daniel sees slow progress, his brain interprets it as a lack of success, even though the system is working exactly as it should. This mismatch between expectation and reality is what causes many people to quit too early. They expect the results of year 20 while they are still in year 3. Understanding this psychological challenge is crucial because it allows you to stay committed even when the results don't feel satisfying. Another misconception that needs to be addressed is the idea that investing alone will make you rich quickly. Compounding is powerful, but it's not fast, especially at the beginning. It requires time, consistency, and patience. There are no shortcuts. The early phase is not about making money quickly. It's about building the system that will eventually generate wealth. Once you accept this, the process becomes much easier to follow, because your expectations align with reality. As Daniel continues his journey, he starts to see investing differently. In the beginning, it felt like a sacrifice, money he couldn't spend, results he couldn't see. But over time, it becomes a source of security and freedom. Each contribution adds another layer to his financial foundation. Each year of consistency brings him closer to the point where his money can support him, instead of the other way around. By the time he reaches the later stages of compounding, the system he built quietly over decades becomes incredibly powerful. In the end, the story of compounding is not about instant success. It's about delayed rewards. The first 10 years may feel slow, even disappointing, but they are the most important part of the journey. They are the years where you build the base, develop discipline, and create the conditions for future growth. Without this phase, the later stages of compounding would never happen. It's like building a runway for an airplane. At the beginning, it looks like nothing is happening, you're just laying down concrete. But once the runway is complete, it allows something much bigger to take off. If there's one lesson to take from Daniel's journey, it's this: don't judge your progress too early. Compounding doesn't feel powerful in the beginning, but that doesn't mean it isn't working. Stay consistent, protect your base, and focus on what you can control. The results will come, but only if you give them enough time. Disclaimer: this content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Always do your own research or consult a licensed financial professional before making investment decisions.